right, guys, listen. The only thing that matters if you subscribe right now or comment or whatever you're doing right now, go to the page. What's the name? Oh, go to the page right now. I was talking to my friend right there, the sexy Chauncey the Bear. You know what time it is. There's two of us, and there's two of them, right? Those wrestling girls, there's two of them. Make sure to subscribe, like, watch, enjoy.
Queen P.R, Krista B, those wrestling girls, TWG, Black Excellence, making it effortless. Podcast bringing up women and wrestling. Let's go.
Hey everybody, what's up? We're back. Of course, it's those wrestling girls. It's your girl Krista B
and Queen P.R.
And today we know we was dragging it out, but we had to build up your anticipation. We had to build up your excitement because this is the official last episode talking about the boss, the standard, the blueprint, Miss Sasha Banks. So we left off on a little bit of everything. I feel like we left off on her feuds with Charlotte and Becky. Mm-hmm. And now we want to talk about her transformation in the ring. Like right before our eyes, a few episodes back, P, you showed a video a picture of Sasha when she was first stepping into NXT when she still had her brown hair.
Yeah, that was like a whole different person. Like, yeah. And then when she came back with the blue hair, you could definitely tell she definitely came into her own. But yeah, I can't wait to get into all of that.
I feel like we should jump right in. Like, I know we do our check-ins. I feel like the check-in should come right in the middle, right when we're, okay, how do we feel about it now? Because, you know, they've been on us about these episodes, about these Sasha Banks, and it's just like, I kind of want to get into it. I know I'm great. I'm feeling good. I really don't have much to check in on. Like, I'm here, I'm present, I'm good. Everything is going really good for me. You know, I'm happy to where things is going next. Not really meaning to rush in to check in, but I'm kind of happy to talk about this as well. I just want to get to like the rest of it.
Yeah, no problem. But I am excited to sum up this series because it really wasn't supposed to be a Sasha Banks series, but it's kind of like, how can you like not like cover just do one episode? Yeah, so this was good. But I think one of the most like interesting places to like go with Sasha is the 2019 time, because it's right off of like 2018, which I talk about all the time, you know, one of the best times for the women in the company. And then, but Sasha kind of was never really like the focal point during like 2018. Becky became a star, and that was kind of, and her and Charlotte kind of just like ran with it. And like, and, you know, not to say her and Bayley weren't doing things, but you know, Ronda Rousey was there. So it was kind of like, you know, where does Sasha fit kind of thing. And this is when she kind of had the lavender hair, and she did become, like we talked about last episode, you know, the first women's tag team champions in WWE with Bayley. But then WrestleMania 35 happens, and that's such a significant pay-per-view for so many different reasons. One, it was my first WrestleMania. Yes, Krista B's first WrestleMania, the first women pay-per-view, WrestleMania main event. That triple threat,
and it lasted for 2 days.
It did, yeah. And then it's funny because that next year became a 2-day event, which I am so grateful for. You guys gave me 2 Stone Cold nights, like, you know.
Okay.
But for Sasha particularly, this was a very significant moment in her life, because it's when she took a step back for the first time. She took a step back from wrestling. I think she took like 3 or 4 months off. But what was interesting about this is that there was no explanation from her, because she went ghost on social media. You know, we talked about it earlier. Sasha Banks is very private. She's not going to really put a lot out there. So there was a lot of speculation during that time. And I think during that time, at least for me, I learned a lot about, because we had just started getting into like wrestling Twitter. We just started getting into just sort of the fan community, because I grew up on it, going to shows thinking like wrestling fans are so happy and cheerful all the time. And then you're on like wrestling Twitter and you're like, oh my God, this is toxic as fuck. And I think the Sasha Banks narrative around her and the speculation was a great example of just how wrestling Twitter can run with a narrative. The dirt sheets can, run with speculation and things that they think they heard, and kind of making assumptions and coming to conclusions based on like who they think Sasha Banks is. Do you remember some of the things that was being said during that time? It's kind of
It
funny
was just
now.
like, oh, Sasha Banks done. She's a sore loser. Like she tucked her tail between her legs and ran. She
Yep.
dropped the ball and now she's crying. Now she's in hiding.
Yeah.
And people, I feel like around when Sasha made her way back onto social media, not even in wrestling, like onto social media, and she had that vulnerable moment, people realized, oh wait, one, she's fucking human.
Mm-hmm.
Two, this is when they started to really take mental health into consideration. Like
Right.
people were just like, oh shit, like she was really going through some stuff. It's not easy. As much as we are here for all these women showcasing their talents, all of them showing us what they have, bringing it every single night. It's not easy. It can't be easy for them to try to one up themselves to climb that ladder, because not only are they here to entertain us as fans, but they're also here fighting for a spot. And if they don't maintain that spot, or if they don't succeed or excel to their ability, they could go. It's easy to
Mm-hmm.
go to mid card, opener, not even seen, no
Right.
TV at all. So imagine doing all of that and then being heckled by the fickle and finicky wrestling fans.
Mm, exactly. And then, Sasha always had I guess a reputation to some extent. She always was like, she's standoffish, she's rude, whatever the narrative was around her. And like, and in retrospect, I think it was just her trying to set boundaries with her fans, which I think kind of works in her favor now, because now we kind of all respect her privacy now. But because of that, now you can make up these stories of just how she could possibly be backstage. And those that, WrestleMania 35, her and Bailey lost their, championships to the Iconics. So supposedly, she had a temper tantrum and all that. And she was ghost for a few months. But we come to find out, like you said, mental health became more of a serious issue. And I think her 24 came out and she talked about, and we touched on this too, where she finally lived for herself. She finally touched the saying, like, touch grass, and it was like, wrestling isn't everything, WWE isn't everything. And just remembering that she joined WWE so young, and as someone who like always kind of like values like those sorts of like moments where it's like like a self-realization journeys, and then seeing and loving Sasha Banks for the inspiration she gives by seeing her do what be in her element and at its best, and then also learning from her, as in like you can take a break from that and and remind yourself like why you love this and why you do it. So it's like, and it's so, when she does decide to open up, it's very genuine. And I feel like it was very unfortunate that like the dirt sheets and all that chose to run with that, as opposed to like you know being maybe more sympathetic in that sense, looking back.
They don't care, because it's like, if you pay money to see a specific person
Hmm.
and they're not there, or if you tuning in every week to see that specific person and they're not there, and you remember how things ended before they were not there anymore, it's easy to just be like, oh well, she did this, that, and third. But at the same time, those are not your real fans. You got the real ones who are worried. Hey, I wonder if everything's okay. It's been times where we tweeted out on our personal and on those wrestling girls accounts, oh, hope Sasha Banks is okay. Hope she's taking
Right.
the time that she needs. Hope she be back soon.
Right.
But
Yeah.
they're really looking at the dollar value of something
Right.
instead of actually looking at the person who's literally putting their body, blood, sweat, and tears on the line every night.
Hmm.
Every night.
Especially somebody like Sasha Banks. But I am glad that she took that break, because I think, and wrestling is one of those interesting times where, unfortunately, sometimes like it could also work against you, but when you have to be sidelined, when it, for whatever reason, when it comes to your character and kind of being refreshed, like it's sometimes like that time off is probably like a blessing in disguise. And I feel that same way with Sasha, where that time off that she took to soul search and to actually train more, and be reminded of like who the fuck she is and why she's the best and why she's doing this, was the best thing she could have done. Because when she came back, she just had this like swag to her that you can just tell that she knows
found who she was.
Right. And then also just take into account, again, how young she was when she joined the company, and how she was living and breathing the Sasha Banks character, and she had to find who she was, and her approaching her 30s, and wanting to finally kind of live for herself.
Yeah.
Like really like live for herself and see like what life was all about. But I want to talk about this moment, because I remember the moment this happened, like it was yesterday. When
I
she
texted
finally
you.
came back.
I was doing laundry. I remember I was doing laundry, and her music hit, and I was on my phone downstairs in the laundry, and I was living in my old apartment, and literally I was like, oh my God, P is literally losing her shit right now.
I really was.
And I texted you. The first thing you all right? You okay?
I like.
And you was like, oh my God. And then I was like, I'm happy for Sasha Banks for turning it on, but this wig, the wig is not wigging.
I was very like, okay. Like I remember being so like, okay, and that's why I say she reminds me of my current Stone Cold, because it was always just like, okay, like when is she coming back? When is that music gonna hit? Then you kind of give up, and you're just like, whatever, she'll come back whenever. And I remember I was laying down on the couch, and I literally jumped up, and I remember I was at my boyfriend's house at the time, and I was just like, oh my God, like, is that really her music? Like, it was like a moment of shock where it's like, oh my God, that's definitely her music. And then my thought was with you, Krista, I should find a photo of that purple wig on top of that blue wig. See, we ain't know about the reveal yet, so we were like, okay.
I knew something had to happen, because it was no way Sasha was they was not gonna make Sasha come on and look crazy like that. There's no way. I knew something had to happen. God. And then she came out with this blue hair, and I'm like, okay, new Sasha, new color.
I think I watched that moment of her return and her turning on Natty like a million times, and it really, and then also just how refreshed she looked when she came out, and and even more so, of course, when she finally did turn on on what's her name?
Bailey?
Natalia. No, Natalia.
Natalia.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm glad she pulled that shit off. But it literally gives me goosebumps, because it was such a great moment, Yeah. And it also was like one of those things, because if you're gonna like be a heel, like Sasha Banks is gonna do it. And Natty is in this middle of like this babyface promo about her dad. And I don't know if it was coming off of like SummerSlam or like whatever.
It was the day after SummerSlam.
Yes.
And Natty injured her arm.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, you're crying and stuff. And then Sasha's like, yeah. And turns on her. And then that's when it's just like off to the races.
Yeah,
girl,
Sasha Banks comes out. She hugs her. She was like, your dad is so proud of you. And it hit me, because the story with mine. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, anybody who loses their father, especially as an adult, it hits me. Like, so when she was just like, yeah, your dad is so proud of you, and this, that, and third, and she was like reaching for a microphone, and she just literally turned it and hit her. And I'm like,
yeah. And I was
Sasha, like,
I was the girl is moving. Like, oh my God. And I know, right? Oh my God. but it was definitely one. I think one of her best. She returns every like whatever, but I think that was definitely one of the best when they like round up like best returns. I think best turns or whatever. I think that should definitely be up there, especially because like I definitely didn't expect it, and then it had an impact, and I think it kicked off like one of the best phases of her career.
So I think I have another quote for our Sasha merch line.
Ooh.
So the first one, heels cry too. I wrote
Yes.
that down. The second one is, if you're gonna be a heel, be like Sasha Banks.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. That down too.
That's a good one. I actually am getting really into the Sasha Banks line idea. So hopefully by the time we're recording this, it's in the works. But I want to make this happen because we gotta give our girl her flowers and everything. So with the blue hair, like I said, I think that kicked off her best chapter of her career thus far, and she came back renewed. Her feud with Becky, I think, was my favorite Becky feud in that man era.
I think, and the thing that gives me goosebumps, right? And I feel like you about to know what I'm about to say. So, and I don't think we touched on it. I don't know if this was when Bailey also turned on Becky, right? If I'm not mistaken, with blue hair, or was this still with purple hair?
Blue hair.
Okay. So, Bailey's just like, bro, relax. Why are you going off on her like that? She takes the kendo stick and starts wailing on Becky, okay? She starts wailing on her. And then the person you least expect to hear, but you also knew it was predictable to hear, Charlotte fucking Flair. So now, as I've been saying, we had these 4 horsewomen. Yeah. It was like playing, if you played 4 corners in the elevator, you just knew how exhilarating that was. If you ever been in a project elevator, if you grew up in the hood, you know what corners are. You know what corners are. Still play it to this day with my cousins.
That's cute.
You ain't gonna catch me lacking. But to see and then the next week we were there in Madison Square Garden when they had the tag team match, and Charlotte and Becky was versus Sasha and Bailey, and that was just like goosebumps right now.
Heaven.
Like
does it get any better than that at Madison Square Garden?
them teaming up against the other 4 horsewomen.
Amazing.
But that right there, I was just like, yo. And I kept tweeting about it. I can go back to the tweets. I kept tweeting about it. I'm like, yo, we're going to need of either 4 horsewomen versus 4 horsewomen. I mean, technically that's what it was, but that's not what I was thinking about. But, we still manifested it. But that has to be one of my favorite moments, right next to Brie Bella coming out and slapping the Miz. But, that has to be one of my favorite moments because it's like the way that they carried on and hated each other, especially this was off of the heels of Becky and Charlotte's feud.
Yeah.
So for Charlotte just to go turn right around and be like, all right, we did used to be best friends once, and I'm not going to let you guys sit here and beat up on her, and she's defenseless, and it's 2-on-1. So now we're going to even the score.
Yeah.
I just need them to like each other in real life again. Because they got to put their differences aside. They got to put differences aside. But that's like hands down top 5 favorite wrestling moment in wrestling history.
I totally agree. And that was just like the bangers that she was coming out with during that time. Because when she came back, and then that leads into her feuding with Asuka, her feuding with Carmella. Like, she really mixed it up with a little bit of everyone during this blue hair phase, and in the middle of a pandemic. So I think we can't talk about her blue hair era. We can't talk about this phase if we don't talk about how she was one of the people that held it down during that time.
Her, Bailey, Bianca, Street Profits, Zelina, Andrade, and the cute one that's always blowing kisses
with the dimples.
Angel Garza.
Yeah.
I was thinking of a more Spanish name than that, and that probably sounded so racist, and I'm sorry.
But I also understand where you're coming from.
Right. Who else was holding it down? The Mysterios, Seth Rollins, Aleister Black. They all held Asuka, Becky, Charlotte after a little bit, Roman when he came back. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
definitely when they was
they
holding
held
it
it
down.
down, and they were, Bailey did her final turn, and then she became SmackDown Women's Champion. She made history. She like I think this is also Bailey's one of her best phases of her career during this time too. And then they teamed up again and became tag team champions. And then Sasha got the belt from who did Sasha get the Raw Championship from? I think after it was like I think from Asuka.
It was Asuka because Becky had left to have a
Yeah,
baby.
right. And then they had all the gold. And normally, and after a while I was over it. I hate when more than one title is involved in a feud, especially in the women's division. But during the pandemic, who better to be double champions than Sasha Banks and Bailey? Their chemistry together, and then we've never seen this dynamic between them. When they were the Boss and Hug connection, they were baby faces, they were cheering and smiling, and she was still with the ponytail and shit. But this new phase, Sasha's always, like you said, she's always been a heel. Now she has like more of a swag because she's Sasha fucking Banks. And then now you have Bailey, who's obnoxious and hilarious. And I think the times where they were the golden role models, or whatever they were calling it, and they were feuding with the Kabuki Warriors, that was some of my favorite stuff. Like, I really wish there was a crowd during it. But how did you feel now, like a couple years later, which is crazy to say? How did you feel about the golden role models?
It was a time. It was a time. It was very well around this time. They did have audience. They had like the other wrestlers come and be the audience behind the plexiglass and stuff. But it was definitely a time to get to enjoy how much further they can take their character, not like in a physical sense, but like in an actual comedic sense. Because it was very difficult to maintain an audience during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like, we're still kind of in one or out one. Like, we don't even know what we are right now. We just know we're enjoying outside.
We're just going day by day.
We are enjoying outside. But it was a really good time to actually see these two. You saw Bailey have some fun with her heel character. You saw Sasha just being the best heel she can be. So it was a time I'm bet I did hate the fact that they were overly glorified every weekend, every week, because I mean, I get it, because it wasn't many wrestlers who, they were all scared of the pandemic. They were all, trying to be safe and whatever their living situations were. Most of them have kids, so it was like kind of hard to come back when you have kids and stuff. So yeah, it was a time. It was a time.
Yeah, it was a time, and I agree. And I thought it was like you just reminded me of those those like video packages that they used to show praising themselves. I just thought everything they were doing at the time was so funny. I became like the biggest Bailey fan during this too, and I remember thinking, in the midst of all of this, it can't be Sasha's turn on Bailey, because everybody knew at some point it was gonna happen, especially once they started losing the gold. And I was like, please, I don't want it to be Sasha again. Like, been there, done that. It has to be Bailey, especially to solidify her heel turn. And it ended up being Bailey that turned on her. And then they had a series of matches, the Hell in a Cell match that we talked about briefly in other episodes. Really quick, how did you feel about their feud as, these new self-realized heels, as opposed to the feud that we talked about in like NXT, where they were first still kind of like,
they were different people. They were different people. Like, you can see that they weren't as green anymore. You can see the evolvement of both Bailey and Sasha. I liked it too, because it wasn't like a heel versus a face. They were two heels facing for that top spot. And that Hell in a Cell match, like I said, like, these women have been around each other for so long that they literally bring out the best in each other. And once you think they can't push that envelope, they're pushing it again and again and again. So it was really good to see these two face off in a way that you've never seen them face off before. We would have never thought, watching Bailey grow up, that I guess grow up, we can say. You would have never thought that we would have saw her as a heel. Ever.
No.
I thought they was going to Ricky Steamboat her and make her forever face.
100%. I would have literally bet money on. Actually, me and my dad laugh about that all the time because he was just like, what if he would always like say it because he hates good guys. He loves bad guys, and I would say I would bet money that they're never going to turn Bailey heel. Like they're never gonna do it. The kids love her too much. She makes too much money on merch. Blah 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 blah. And little behold, and now she's like literally one of
Girl,
my
you would have been broke.
favorite, right? One of my favorite characters, and I think her being able to work with Sasha Banks, just the behind the scenes of it during such a time like the pandemic that was so unpredictable. Nobody knew what was really going on, and I also just always have to thank the performers like Sasha Banks and Bailey that still performed during the pandemic because being able to watch wrestling like probably saved my life during that time. But anyway, I love that they got to do it together. So these are best friends. Now they can travel together. Now they can kind of like weather this whole storm together and, adjust to performing, in front of no crowds and things like that. So I can only imagine how, they look back on it as like best friends or wrestling soulmates. This new phrase I've been seeing like everywhere on Twitter. But I am glad that it kind of ended different. And then it kind of had Bailey kind of go off and do her thing, and Sasha went off to do her thing. So real quick, about because we kind of already talked about her main eventing with Bianca Belair, but how and we've talked about it a lot, but what was your emotions like? Realizing that because it wasn't official that it was gonna main event, but everybody kind of knew like how y'all not gonna have a main event, and then it finally announced it. How
You talking about this right here?
Yeah.
You talking about that right there?
yes.
Oh, I'm loving this neon up here. But anyway, my emotions. Well, my emotions were all over the place once they announced it, and then once we actually got to see it, because around that time I was speaking with Bianca on a frequent basis, just doing check-ins and congratulating her, and telling her how proud I am, but not of just her, of Sasha as well. And just seeing where her headspace was at, and then also seeing where my headspace was at, because at that time my first brunch and panel was literally the day of their match. So Bianca was like, "Hey, are you gonna come? Are you flying? Are you gonna come?" I said, "I can't because I'm having my event the same day, and it'll be too hard to fly out afterwards." And she was like, "Okay, well, good luck on your event." I said, "Girl, good luck on your match, because I'm definitely watching. As soon as my event is done, I'm definitely like heading to the bar and I'm gonna watch." And that's exactly what I did. As soon as my event was done, I don't know where my friends went after that. I know my friend Medina was up here. I don't know what happened to her. All I know was that I think she had the other key. She went out. I came out. We sat together, and we saw. I think there were really times that we was pinching ourselves the entire night. Do you remember?
I
We was
couldn't
just like,
believe it. I really was like, this is such a moment.
and then it
for
was the
all
first
of
one with the
us.
audience back in person.
Right. Oh God. And then you just knew it was so many different layers to it. And I think, and just to like, for Bianca, that's, but for Sasha particularly, this was kind of like her redemption a little bit because of, when she left after WrestleMania 35 in 2019, and everything that people said about her, and then everything she's accomplished up until this point. And for the next half, we'll talk about all the mainstream stuff that she did. But this moment, especially, it was in front of a crowd, and she came in as champion. And even though, this is Bianca's moment, and she, if Bianca didn't win, I would have been like, what the hell? It was still, I think, a moment for Sasha, for her to be self-realized, like different gear, like everything about her, the confidence, of course she had to have an entrance. But this moment for me is probably one of my favorite Sasha moments. And I was trying to find a photo of Sasha's face and her and Bianca getting like emotional before the bell rings. And I think for just Black girls, Black women, shout out to Black Wrestling who got us the hoodie, the sweatshirts with the moment on it. But it was significant in so many different, ways. And then this being the second match that main evented WrestleMania.
For the first Black females to do so.
Yes, exactly. They ended up winning an ESPY award.
And I feel like with this is something that I can legit, like when I'm manifesting having daughters, like 2. I mean, if I have a son, of course, but I'm manifesting having daughters and my goddaughters. And it's just like, I can go back and tell them that this right here was so pivotal in wrestling history. This was a pivotal moment in wrestling history because of the fact that this is something that we've never ever seen before. You had Bianca, who literally made history this whole year right here. She did something historic. And then you have Sasha, who has performed in WrestleMania, who did triple threat matches, who did all of this, but there was like mid card slots to come in, to never winning at WrestleMania up until this previous one that just passed, to main event. And literally, like, she from beginning to end, and like, she just came out and you just knew like her nerves were more calm. Like, she was gonna let Bianca have that moment to where, she was gonna get emotional and stuff. Like, Sasha's on something. I've been there, done that. We're gonna get this match rolling.
Yeah.
But this is just like, this is something I can legit tell my kids and my grandkids about. Like, hey, like, if you're into wrestling, you need to know your history, and watch this match.
Yes, definitely watch this match, and it's significant. And I think you can almost like forget, because I shouldn't say hated the storyline going into it, but I was very confused of what's that guy's name that be flipping and shit. I was confused of like his involvement. It was very like heavily, and I'm glad that when they like edit the video package, they don't include how much he was actually included in all of it, because
Wait,
I really
who be
wasn't.
flipping? A lot of them flip.
Carmella's like wine.
Oh, James Ellis,
No,
the one that ain't got no jaw, him.
No, the one with the dreads, the one that's the 24/7 champion that legit be flipping because he was in the Cirque du Soleil. But him, so he was like heavily featured in it, and I
want to say Rodney, but that's just a typical black name. That ain't it. I'm sorry.
But yeah, I didn't like that. But I think at the end of the day, it was more about what the moment was. I think this is a good time to take a break, and then we can go into her legacy, mainstream appeal, and I don't even want to talk about the walkout, but we can touch on her dynamic tag team with Naomi.
All right, y'all. So as we're coming to a close on this Sasha Banks chapter, this is episode 3, and usually y'all know me, I'll get tired. Like, all right, I'm not doing this no more. We talked about it, but I had a good time doing this 3-part episode. And this is like our first 3-part. Listen, Sasha Banks is making history on those wrestling girls. Dude.
I love everything about that.
Like, she's making history on those wrestling girls. She's making history in wrestling. Mm-hmm. It's just like, all this history, what is her legacy going to be? And I know that your trolls is going to be like walking out, having a tantrum, having an attitude, fuck y'all.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about all that dumb shit, because we did a stream on it actually, and it's one of our like highest viewed episodes. Wild. And the comments, and shout out to Blue Mix Tag for inviting us on that, but the comments under that, like, and we normally like our comments are normally positive. We rarely ever get a negative comment, but the comments under that video about just, about Sasha's attitude and all that stuff is just so crazy to me. And then you can't help but sense that there's a little hint of, racism.
It's no little, it's definitely blatant. It's out there.
It's very blatant.
You gotta stop sugarcoating stuff, baby. You gotta stop sugarcoating stuff.
But you're right about that. But I think what is important about it though is like, none of it, like I just seen like Naomi on, and Naomi on her social media, and she's happy, and Sasha Banks is happy, and she's in a position where she can leave WWE behind. She's been with the company almost 10 years maybe now. She can go. She's been doing mainstream stuff, and why she walked out, and if that was her end with WWE, I think she's had an amazing career to look back on. I think you can't talk about women in WWE. You can't talk about women's wrestling, period, at this
Without
point,
Sasha
without
Banks.
talking about Sasha Banks. And I think she's probably one of the first people now that you can probably talk about. And I think I get goosebumps talking about it because that's what she said she was going to do. That's what she said she wanted to be. And she did it. And she was one of the first. She was like trailblazer. Like, I don't think there's like a person other than Sasha Banks that can be called like a trailblazer at this point.
I agree. And we rarely agree on shit. And I agree on that one. I agree on that one. Like,
Yeah.
wholeheartedly, definitely agree on that one.
She really is somebody that you can look up to, like even outside of wrestling, like you can really look up to, and someone who followed their dreams, like legit, like as corny, like as cheesy as those phrases can be, like do all you can to follow your dreams. Like she really like did that, and I think she's someone that you can really like look up to for that. But I want to talk a little bit about her mainstream endeavors, because I think no one really has done it like well, maybe so, because you got your Becky's now, but it has been like really, really exciting to see her thrive in that way.
It has been. From her NXT days all the way up, like even make like I feel like Sasha is one of the females who's made the most history in WWE. I feel like she's one who's made one of the most history making moments. She's been in ESPYs, she's in The Mandalorian. Like, I don't even watch Star Wars, but I promise you I would have watched that if I wasn't going to be lost.
And it's funny, I asked one of my coworkers who's like heavy into Star Wars and stuff, and she, she's not into wrestling, but she's heavy into like comic culture and stuff like that. So she's familiar with wrestling to some extent, and she always, was a fan of Sasha Banks because, what she did know about her was like, okay, she's passionate, and then she's in Star Wars. And I remember that was everybody's thing, like, oh my God, I think like one of those wrestlers that she knows like on Star Wars. And I was like, I know. And I was able to break the story on the Sun website, which was really exciting.
I was happy for you.
And I was like, oh my God, because this was like a huge deal. And everything about Sasha, there's rumors, there's all these things that people are saying. But then it was like, oh shit, she really was in Star Wars. And it was also a fuck you to all of like the haters that kept saying she was doing all of this stuff, and she was all to, all that the stuff they were saying about her. She was working. My girl was getting Disney checks. And she has a doll from this.
Period.
So I think if anyone...
She has two dolls. She has the one from Mania 34, 31, 32. Whichever one that Triple Threat one happened at, I can't think of the numbers. The numbers of WrestleMania is merging like the days where we were in the pandemic.
I know, right?
When we were on lockdown.
But she has a Mandalorian doll. Like, I think that's just like who can say they have a Star Wars figurine? Like, that is huge. And another thing I enjoyed about this experience with her is that I watched a lot of like press that her and the cast did for The Mandalorian, and how highly they spoke of her and how much they enjoyed working with her. And of course they had to have her do some like physical, stuff, because how are you going to be a wrestler and not, do some like, wrestling moves? So she was able to bring that. And I always talk about how just the skills that wrestling has, that you can easily transition sometimes into acting. So Sasha already being a performer, already knowing how to perform like stunts per se, she kind of like fit right in. And I was really hoping she was like in season 2.
Wait, it was a series and not a movie?
It was a series, yeah.
See, I started off lost, you see?
Plus, and I asked my
Harry
friend,
Potter stuff. Like, I would know it.
I asked my coworker, I was like, can I watch this just because she's in it? And she was just like, you're not gonna really be able to like really understand what it like, but I just couldn't help but just be so proud of her. I was like, yeah, Sasha, like, because of the tone of her career at the time before she left, and now to come back, and it's like, wow, bitch, like now you're in The Mandalorian. Like that's huge. This is not just like a guest spot in some TV. Like you're a part of the Star Wars like lexicon. Like that's huge. And then when she came back from recording that, I mean filming that, I feel like she even more had of a swag. Like yo, like I did this. I'm the best. Y'all. I really love that.
All right, so we
But
definitely have to touch on, and I know you don't want to, but
what's up?
it's real in our face right now. We definitely have to touch on this walkout. But can we just look out how fabulous she looks in this?
Yeah. See, I don't want to talk about the walkout because we've talked about it. It's
I
like
know
watch
we've
our
talked about
stream
it, but at the
and
same time,
get
it's
that.
something that being that it's still something that's being all in our face and all these rumors and stuff now, because before the walkout, she won her first match at Mania that we were there to witness
Yeah, that
with
was
Naomi.
huge.
And it's just like Naomi became a tag team champion for the first time, I believe, with Sasha.
Mm-hmm.
This is Sasha Banks' third time being women's tag team champion. And their run was really short. And why I want to talk about the walkout, if how I see it or how I envision it in my head, I applaud their walkout because we were getting them wrestling not as a tag team to defend the belts, but we were getting them wrestling as singles competitors for belts that they didn't even need yet, because the gold was still so cold around their belts, around their waist, that they didn't even warm it up yet. So for the lack of creative and for the fact that they're going to sit here and use these women as pawns to showcase y'all belts and do nothing with them, if that's how it really went down and y'all had no creative and no anything, and then at the beginning of Raw, y'all going to sit here and make a match public saying that Naomi and Sasha are going to be competing in, what was it, a 6-way match to see who was going to face Bianca for the Raw Women's title. And that's not where the storyline is supposed to go for these women's tag team match. I applaud you guys for standing up and walking out. Y'all haters can say whatever the fuck it is y'all want to say, but we as black women, we as women, we're not respected in spaces where we should be, which are predominantly ran by male or predominantly white face. So if that's how it went down, then I so absolutely salute and applaud you guys.
100%.
And that's all I'm gonna say about that walkout.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree on that. And I think too, what it shows as well, like with Sasha's growth, is like she can do that. She can advocate for the women's division because of all she's accomplished, because of the visibility that she's put on women's wrestling, and people that don't, her at the SBs and winning at the SBs, and her doing, spots with like Kevin Hart, and, being out there and people knowing like who she is, that she now can say like, no, this doesn't make sense. Like, why are we doing this? Like, how does this advance these titles? And I think just going back to just like the women's evolution, not per se the women's evolution, but just the evolution of women's wrestling is, I think about like the Bret Harts who put so much respect in the championships, whatever championship he was holding, he was gonna hold it to high regard. And anytime he stepped in that ring, he was gonna tell a story that elevated the title or the feud or whatever to push things forward. And that was what was most important, was telling those kind of stories. And I think about Sasha Banks as that same way. And then it makes me really disappointed in WWE, where it's like, how do you not, take advantage or, want to give flowers to someone who wants that same integrity for the women? So it's like, okay, we have these tag team championships. Why are we not defending them? Why are we not putting them in meaningful storylines? Why are we not, having, actual feuds? Why don't we have a tag team division? So for her to actually stand up for that and be like, yo, and she's always, I think I will never forget getting goosebumps when she put over Toni Storm. on live TV and just and basically educated everyone on who the fuck Toni Storm was. Everywhere she wrestled, how talented she was. Any chance she got on, and Bailey's the same way. They talk about the plethora of talent of women that they want to work with because they're good. So why not want to build more around her? And of course, and I would never, and I definitely want to touch on Sasha Banks's fans, but I would never say she didn't have a fantastic career. I would never say, we had a whole kind of episode about all the firsts that she's made, but I do feel like there were times where they could have featured Sasha more or had her win certain matches and certain titles, reigns not be too short. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. They do Sasha really dirty. So again, I applaud the walkout. I will always applaud women standing up for themselves. I don't care if it's somebody stealing a piece of gum from you. I will always applaud somebody.
Stick up for yourself.
Stand up for yourself. So I definitely applaud that. So I know we did things a little bit different this time, but I'm pretty sure we should bring back our Ask TWG because you do have some questions.
I do have some questions. But yeah, I think before we go into that, I love that we finally got to cover Sasha. And now it's like I don't have to say it anymore. But also,
so now don't ask me again. Thanks.
Yeah. And then also because I think it's our first 3-parter. It's our first sort of like the new season, going into this last quarter, and being that this is the new start of a phase of Sasha's career, wherever that may be. So I think this was a good kind of place to recap. And she's such a person that inspires me, and I think I wanted to talk more about like her fans and stuff, but I'm thinking that might be some good like Twitch after show content.
I feel like that should be like a good after show, and that can easily turn into a sound off because sometimes these fans ain't fans.
Right, exactly. So there's of course so much more to talk about Sasha Banks with, so definitely stay tuned for that. I'm hoping the Sasha Banks merch line is a thing, and things are really exciting.
I agree, but I do feel like the Sasha. I'm literally writing down quotes that I say. So
nice. Okay, so our check-in and our hashtag AskTWG. So for those that don't know what it is, it's kind of our Ask Us Anything, because we want to like kind of talk about shit that's not necessarily about wrestling. But also I think it's funny that like you can just like literally ask us anything and we like have to answer the question. But I do have 2 from a friend of the show, a very special friend of the show, Mike, aka Nisho Soul. He is a musician. He actually did our
music,
entrance music. So he had 2 questions that he wanted to ask. So one is top 3 places y'all would like to travel to. Hashtag TWG.
Barcelona, Spain. Greece.
Ooh, I heard Greece is beautiful.
I heard it's beautiful too. And I think the last place I would love to travel to, I mean, I've been there already, but I want to go back to Aruba.
I love Aruba. That's like my favorite Caribbean island I've ever been to. I think I want to definitely I always wanted to really go to London because of like Harry Potter, but I like work with people in fucking London, and it kind of took not that anything's wrong with people from London, but it took like that mystique from it. So I'll probably end up going there for work, hopefully. And then, so I'll just say Europe because I want to go to like Paris and
Rome.
Never mind.
I was gonna say something about Paris, but never mind.
Okay. I always wanted to go to. My sister has been to Cuba a few times now, and she loves it. And she says like the art and she knows
colors,
I love art.
Everything is so vibrant.
Yeah, oh my gosh. That's what she says. Everything, like from the food, and she was just like, and every time she goes, she's like, I just know you would love it. So I want to go to Cuba. And then a third place, I guess. I don't know. I really want to go everywhere. So I did hear Greece is beautiful too. But yeah, I think those are 3 places I would like to travel to. Yeah. Okay, you ready for the next one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If Queen PR and Krista B were a tag team, who would be the team y'all would face in your debut? Ooh, good one, Mike. Hashtag AskTWG.
Well, first we have to have an actual division of tag teams so we can pick and choose
Right. Like,
who we
what? Is
can
it any
face.
promotion? Interesting.
Right. Okay. So if it's WWE, I would have to say who's on right now. I think I would want to face if it's WWE. If it's WWE past or present. If it's past, definitely the Bella Twins. Definitely the Bella Twins. Also Golden Role Models. Definitely got to
Yes.
face them, especially because I'm the heel. I'm the heel of the group. If it's AEW, it's either the baddie section or Britt Baker and whoever she's running around with. And if it's like Impact or whatever, anything involving Mia Yim, I probably like whatever. If she's a part of anybody's tag team, I definitely would, do that too.
I actually agree with all. I agree with all of those. I would love to debut against all of those tag teams, especially the Golden Role Models, or maybe the Kabuki Warriors, because I think Kairi Sane and Asuka. Well, wait, I can't think of it as a fan. I gotta think of like as opponents. I'm like,
right. So I'm like,
they're
the
hilarious.
Japanese wrestlers are very, very
brutal,
more advanced. So I might just have to forget that, what outcomes and stuff would be if I'm hit the wrong way, and I'm just swinging,
right.
The real Brooklyn and Bronx, the real Brooklyn and me and real Bronx and you will come out.
Definitely. So I like the Bella Twins as our opponents because I think it's a good storyline. Like, y'all are supposed to be Bella Army, but it's like, nah, fuck Bella Army. We gonna fuck you up. That was a good question. I'm gonna put a tweet back out and stuff on social so we could get more questions. And I want them to get more spicy. I want y'all to ask us literally anything. And y'all know Krista B will sound off on shit. So let's get these goodies because I don't think I want to show you them just because I want to get your reaction because you're so funny.
Right, can we do one more then? Do you have one more?
I don't have one more, unfortunately, but we're gonna make sure we get some so that we just have them and I could just throw them at you like boom, 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 boom. So post your questions. Hashtag AskTWG.
Give us your questions. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we have. I was gonna spill it, but I think I could save it. I was going to spill it about what we got planned and how excited we are to have things rolling. But we're going to wait.
Yeah.
We're going to wait.
Just know me and Krista B are making moves. That's all y'all can know right now.
That's on period.
And we love y'all and we appreciate you guys for always tuning in and supporting us. Going into 4 fucking years, which is insane.
4 years, y'all. So you already know we're about to turn up.
Yes.
We about to get our faces beat. We about to get our hair slayed. We about to get everything done top to bottom. It's about to be lit. So make sure y'all stay tuned. Make sure y'all following us on all social media platforms. Those Wrestling Girls, TWG, Patreon, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everywhere. And our personal accounts are all in our bios as well. So just please make sure that you are following us, stay in tune with us. And on that note, it's your girl, Krista B.
And Queen P.R.
And we're out of here. Bye.
Queen P.R, Krista B, those wrestling girls, TWG, Black excellence, making it effortless. Podcast bringing up women and wrestling. Let's go.